This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight is Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got three main films to review. We're going to kick off with Emile Hirsch in Inside Man. Then we have an Australian thriller called The Cost of Vengeance. And then it's off to Moldova for HEIR of the Witch. Our short shot this week is RAZE of the Cyborg. And our DTV Throwback is a film called Rockaway. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Inside Man. Based on true events, a disgraced police detective seeking redemption by going undercover to expose a violent crime syndicate. But as he sinks deeper into the mob, the price of absolution may be higher than he can afford. This is one of those weird situations, Steve, where we've seen so much of Emile Hirsch recently in DTV land that just hearing his voice now, I'm going, oh, okay, it's Emile Hirsch. I think the film starts with like his eyes reflecting in the rearview mirror, and then his voiceover starts. I thought, I know who this is. It's straight away. It's like, okay, so we're getting pretty familiar with Emile Hirsch now, sort of in DTV land, after the likes of John Cusack and Stephen Dorff, all those sort of character actor kind of guys, sort of now getting into our neck of the woods. I thought this was pretty decent overall. It's the DTV version of Donnie Brasco, isn't it? Basically, is sort of there's a bit of Goodfellas, a bit of Sopranos kind of thing in there as well. But I think the accents and everything were quite measured. It wasn't over the top. A bit too much voiceover from Emile, I thought. But other than that, I thought, for a film set in the 80s, I thought it was pretty well done. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's performance is good, it's well shot, but it's nothing that we haven't seen before a million times over. Exactly, it's one of them. There's no real shocks or surprises, or you know what's coming, you know what's going to happen. I think the only real difference in this is like trying to win his wife back by going undercover. Yeah,
trying to prove himself as a hero, kind of thing, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I mean, it's a bit dickish what he does, but understandable, at the beginning. And and like I say, especially like the gangsters, I thought they were actually quite pretty good and stuff. And it's just we've seen it all before a million times over, and there's nothing really new to it, or there's no big shocks or anything like that. But yeah, it's pretty decent.
I thought so. I mean, there are some good sort of tense scenes in here. Like there's a bit towards the beginning where he's I have a sit down meeting with like the head honcho sort of thing. And it's like
he's cutting up a pig or something.
Oh no! After that, so a bit later on, when and it's just the two of them in the room, and he's sort of saying, "Have you ever killed someone?" And he's like, that whole thing. It was quite interesting. But what surprised me is the amateurness of it a little bit. He's going undercover, so they want him to wear a wire. From the very first moment, I'm thinking, surely you're more likely to get frisked. They're going to check you out. The first couple of meetings. I thought that was ridiculous, really. And the fact that he sat there and he's sweating like a pig, and he's going, "I'm so aware of the bloody tape recorder, strapped to my body right now." It's like, are you going to sweat anymore? They're going to see the outline of it, it's sort of stuck to your body.
Yeah, maybe that's how they did it. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's based on true events and everything, as it says. Yeah, I mean, for me, the the gangster side of it, they all kind of blended into one a little bit. For me, they didn't really sort of, no real sort of standouts. I did like Lucy Hale in it, who played the bartender. I thought she was very good. And I mean, other than the sort of voiceover bit, I thought Emile Hirsch was pretty decent in this. I still stand by the fact that he was in one of the worst films of the year with that bloody John Cusack film called Pursuit, where he's got bloody a cockroach tattooed on his face. But he was good in The Price We Pay. That was a pretty decent film, and in this, he's doing really well as well. So
I mean, I don't dislike him.
I did after that bloody film, but my opinion of him has changed a lot, after the previous couple of films I've seen him in. So yeah, this is a pretty solid, DTV sort of film based on true events. As Steve says, it's nothing spectacular, nothing we haven't seen before, but it does what it does quite well, I think. And on that note, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 7.
Yeah, it's a solid 7. It's there. You can't really sort of fault it too much. If you like Donnie Brasco, that sort of thing, this is pretty decent. So there you go. 2 7s for Inside Man. Go check it out. Our next film is The Cost of Vengeance. What do you do when a man responsible for killing the person dearest to you is captured, sentenced to 30 years, serves 10 of those years, and then is let out into the world having been considered reformed? Intent on dispensing their own brutal form of justice, 2 ordinary men abduct a felon who committed a horrific crime many years before. Okay, so this is, for the most part, this is a very solid thriller. It does get some good mileage out of its premise. I must admit, the whole thing about the time lapse was lost on me for a lot of the film. So I was wondering if it was going to be one of these things where they've got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
They've abducted this guy going, it's definitely him sort of thing, and then it's going to turn out later that it's not, or whatever. But no, I mean, he pretty much confesses to it, later on. But that opening bit, when he goes to the like Home Depot kind of place and gets all the bits, sort of the dust sheets and sort of binding the rope and all this sort of stuff, it's one of those things, isn't it? On the one hand, yeah, it probably does look quite innocuous as a guy just sort of, maybe remodeling his kitchen or something. But surely some of these guys working at Home Depot must be thinking, that's exactly the sort of stuff you need for a kidnapping.
Well, I mean, years ago, I used to work at B&Q. And you're looking in the trolleys and stuff as you're walking around, and you think, oh, there's the body. There's the body.
Yeah. Do you really need that many garden sacks, that sort of thing? No. So it gets good mileage out of the setup of them sort of stalking the guy and all this, and then they get hold of him, and there's a bit where they get stopped by the cops and all this, and there's good bit of tension. That all works really well. What I was surprised about was how long it takes them to actually get around to doing anything.
I'll be honest, that was my issue with it. It's too long.
It's drawn out, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's nearly 2 hours. I think it's like 1 hour and 50. And about 3/4 of the way through, it just kind of loses you because it's just the same thing over and over again. To be fair, the setup's quite good. But again, even I mean, what is it like half an hour, 45 minutes before they even
nab him,
into where they get into, and you know, and it's like, well, they didn't really need all that stuff in. I mean, if they'd have cut 10, 20 minutes out of it, I think it would have been a lot tighter, a lot more tension involved. It just kind of drags out a bit, and the ending's a little bit not forced, but it's a bit comical in a way, to be fair, and it does kind of break the tension of the film.
It does a bit, yeah.
Especially what happens and how it happens. You know, it's a bit like, come on, really?
Yeah, that's a bit weird, that bit.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, as I was saying, because we get this moment, you know, we don't see what happens to you know, the victim, but you know, they start stalking this guy. It's like, yeah, it's him, it's definitely him, sort of thing. You know, he's living in this sort of like really shitty apartment. He's you know, he's a total slob, all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, he's got this. He seems to have this sort of like happy-go-lucky nature to him. You know, when you see him go to the off license and that and buy some beers, and he's all quite cheery and that, and you're thinking, this doesn't seem like the sort of guy you'd expect. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm thinking, is it the right guy? You know, they got the right guy. But then he turned out, yeah, he got caught. He got sentenced to 30 years for what he did, but got let out after 10, sort of thing. You know, which is why these guys have decided to, you know, they don't feel he's suffered enough, sort of thing. I
mean, it's also quite sympathetic towards him as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, you definitely get a bit of Stockholm syndrome in there.
Well, it is that sort of thing. I mean, there's you know, there's a lot of cases where, you know, where people sort of like kind of second guess the judicial system, or you know, and there are certain areas which are quite you know, people have a sort of very sort of strong knee-jerk reaction to, like the director of Jeepers Creepers. You know, he got caught for, you know, certain child sex crimes.
Exactly.
I can't remember his name. It's something going on there where he you know, he molested one of his sort of child actors or something. You know, but he got caught, did time for it, and then went back to work, basically. You know, and there is a thing. Well, he's been tried and sentenced. You know, is that the end of it, kind of thing, or you know, are we still allowed to cast our own judgment on the situation? You know, it's that sort of thing.
I mean, look at Polanski. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, never. Well, did he actually get tried?
Who's that? Sorry.
Did he actually get tried for it, or because didn't he end up in house arrest a few years ago?
Roman Polanski. Yeah. Well, he's made a point of never setting foot in the US, has he? Basically, so yeah. But and I mean, it's interesting as well with people like Roman Polanski and whatever the hell that guy's name was. There is that sort of disconnect. You know, are you allowed to disconnect the person from the art? You know what I mean? It's like there's that, but I digress. That's not what was going on here at all. It's just you know, it's a bit sort of cut and dry. So this is, you know, is really well done. I think it does sort of like run out of steam a bit towards the end as to what it wants to do, or where it can really sort of go. But yeah, the setup is certainly very good. So on that note, Steve, how are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 6.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 2 6s for The Cost of Vengeance. It was originally called The Cost, but it is getting released over here with the Of Vengeance added to it, and because, you know, British people are thick, basically, and, you know, well, understand what the cost is about. But there you go. Yeah, so 2 6s for The Cost of Vengeance. Go check it out. Our third review tonight is HEIR of the Witch. An underprivileged seamstress, haunted by her past, seeks love and acceptance in high society, but is faced with a curse from her evil roots. So I think this is from Moldova, or at least it's.
Well, she's supposed to be. She's from Moldova, isn't she?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Now this is written, directed, and starring the same person. Just bear with me 2 secs.
Victoria Ubel.
That's the one. Yeah, Victoria Ubel. Now I am always a bit wary of passion projects like this, Steve, because she's the director, she's also the writer and the star. Which means yeah, it's one of those things where there's no discerning voice. Exactly. Yeah. There's no opposing voice to sort of to bounce off against, to sort of suggest maybe this isn't the best way of doing it, or whatever. It's all in our own heads kind of thing. Our own, as I said, it's our own project. I mean, for a first-time director, doing first-time feature director, I should say, it's not a bad effort for sure. There are elements in here. The way certain scenes are lit reminded me a bit of Evil Dead 2. There's certain graveyard scenes at night and things. It's sort of model effects work or whatever, but they get lighting effects sort of quite similar to Evil Dead 2, which is quite nice. And there's a couple of decent sort of makeup effects and things along the way. But
yeah,
it feels incredibly disjointed. And at times I really just didn't have a clue as to what was going on or why we were seeing certain things at all. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, I mean the acting was terrible. I'll be honest. Especially the.
You get the impression they're not acting in their own language, though. I mean, there seems to be a lot of this recently, where I think, it feels to me like they're being dubbed, but maybe they're just sort of acting. Maybe English isn't their first language, sort of thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems a bit. Well, yeah, disjointed this kind of way. I mean, the acting I thought was terrible. The editing as well was all over the place. I don't know why. I mean, there's one scene where a little girl goes missing from the park, and she runs in she's running towards the woods to find it. And there's 4 or 5 different cuts there, and it's you don't need that. It's just that bit in Taken 3 where Liam Neeson
jumps over the fence. Yeah,
and it's 15 separate cuts.
Yeah.
It was kind of like that in a way, and it was you don't need that kind of stuff. And it all just seemed a little. Majority of it seemed quite amateurish. I'll be honest. I thought some of the scares were pretty good, and some of the effects were quite good as well. I mean, the bit where the black guy gets accosted in the outside the car, that bit was quite effective. I thought that bit was pretty decent. But a lot of it was just, and then the twist at the end, I was it was just, no, that's too far and too ridiculous, that. But having said that, the actual, start of the affair, it just comes out of nowhere. And I don't know how we keep that up for. So, I mean, I suppose people do. I mean, it does happen. But in this situation, I just don't think that would work out. And it just pushes credulity just too much in certain aspects.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing with the curse, I must admit, I found quite difficult to follow at the beginning. And it didn't help. It didn't help that I've been watching old episodes of Mock the Week. And in particular, there's a whole thing. Ages and ages ago, there was a thing about some council trying to get rid of some gypsies off their land. And Mickey Flanagan was sort of doing this whole thing about, this gypsy woman putting a curse on you, all this sort of stuff. And that's all I could think of for a lot of this, going, I put a curse on you. It's like, God. But yeah, it's unfortunate. We've had a lot of films like this recently, which are sort of, this sort of just disjointed scenes which don't seem to go anywhere. Flashbacks, flashbacks which just don't go anywhere as well. They just seem to be filler basically, which is a shame. But at least it sort of ups the body count towards the end, and things actually sort of happen at least. There's one funny bit I do like was when she's sort of trying to say to I think it's her daughter, isn't it, where she's going, "Don't worry, I'll protect you," and she's like, "No, you don't have to protect me. She's not after me," which I thought was great. Yeah, I'm fine. It's you. You're fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. But anyway, how are you going to score it, Steve?
Don't know if, but yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. I thought 4 might be a bit harsh, but you know what? Thinking about it, it is. It's a couple of weeks since I watched it now, and it's not really stuck with me. So I think 4.
Yeah. Okay. It has a good look to it. There are some good technical aspects here. However, maybe next time get somebody else to develop the script, or give it to somebody else to read through. Something. Take on board a bit of criticism. And sort of develop a more coherent film. I think is where we're coming from in this one. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 5. So a 4 and a 5 for Heir of the Witch. Go check it out. Our short film this week is RAZE of the Cyborg. When a group of cyborg criminals kidnap Grace, the girlfriend of a well-known enforcer, he seeks the help of a black market surgeon who convinces him that there's only one way to save her: become a cyborg himself. 25 minutes short, this one, Steve.
Yep.
And I felt it could be shorter, basically. There's a lot of fluff in here. There's some really good stuff, I have to say. Some of the fighting stuff is great. And there's some great effects of the various cyborgs. There's a whole thing with the cyborgs with their these ones with their faces, sort of robot faces, and that, and the yellow eyes. I thought that looked really, really cool. But I think the first half of it drags. There's a lot of fluff in there. It does get better as it goes on. There's some of the fighting stuff is great to see, and I did like his little high-tech toys, like these little drones and these those little bomb things that he attaches to people. Thought that was really, really cool. So what do you think of this one?
I mean, the first half is a bit slow, and there's a couple of questionable things. There's like a flashback within a flashback within a flashback at one point, and I was like, hang on a minute, showing 3 different timelines at the same time. Where am I up to?
You see, this is the thing, right? This is flashbacks within flashbacks, because you're basically saying, remember that time when. Remember, it's basically saying, remember that time when we reminisced about that other time?
Yeah.
It's like, well, why did we do that? Why did we just reminisce to the first bit? It's a weird thing to sort of set up. Yeah,
it was just a little bit. Hang on, but then the transformation took a bit too long as well. Did it really need all? Oh, it's calibrating. Just kind of get on with it. Let's get to the action on this one.
That was a funny bit when he goes to use his gun. It goes, oh, we haven't synced up the gun yet. So his Microsoft Office version of a cyborg arm. Yeah.
But when the action starts, it just gets 10 times better, and ultimately is decent from then on. But yeah, I just thought it took too long to get going. I mean, we've seen that many shorts over the years, and now, normally it's like a 10, 15 minute boom, straight into the action scene, done. I mean, I'll give it credit, he's trying to do a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if they're using it as a proof of concept or, using it to get funding for a bigger, different project. I personally, I don't know. I mean, having said that, it is from 3 years ago. 2020 it was made, so I don't know if he's done anything since.
I think it's I mean, looking at it's been on the festival circuit for a while. It's turned up on YouTube about 2 months ago, basically. So yeah, I mean, that tends to be what happens. Is in order to be considered for a lot of festival competitions, you can't have it on in the public domain, basically. So
right, okay, yeah.
So once it's done its run, then they can sort of pop it
release
in.
It. Yeah.
Basically, so yeah, that's where the delay is. But yeah, it's from a guy called Hayden Lee, and he does have quite a few things on his YouTube page worth checking out. Probably on based on this, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some good stuff. Usually we get Rich to talk about these guys, but this is from Taiwan. And it's pretty hard hitting, pretty gritty. There's sort of quite a lot of nastiness in there as well. So yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. We don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out, and we will put the link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Rockaway. A decorated war hero returns to the United States after the brutal murder of his wife and child back home in Rockaway, Queens. He vows revenge against the network of neighborhood criminals responsible for their deaths. I came across this film recently. It's from 2006, and it's available on TUBI in America, and it's the only place I've been able to find it. Unfortunately. So, if you've got a VPN, then you can set it up to the United States as the source, then you can access Tubi, and I do recommend this. So you got this guy, he goes back to his old neighborhood where his wife and daughter were murdered, and he basically just starts working his way through the food chain. There's a good bit at the beginning where he starts slagging off these two guys who literally, they've been using his house as a brothel as well. So he goes in and kicks out all the prostitutes, and this guy is sort of trying to front him basically, and he's sort of going, "You're gonna die," and this sort of stuff, and he's sort of like pointing to his gun, which is sort of tucked in the front of his trousers. So a hero just reaches in and grabs hold of the gun and just shoots his dick off, which I thought was great. And that sort of sets the tone of the film basically. So he finds out that sort of the head, the guy who runs the drugs in the neighborhood, he's actually working for the Russians. So that changes his mission plan. Now he's after the Russians, and he starts playing this guy off against the Russian mafia. There's one guy of note in the Russian mob played by Oleg Taktarov, who, if you remember Predators, he's the sort of Arnold Schwarzenegger, the big Russian guy who's got the minigun. Big bulky.
To be honest, it's been that long since I've watched it.
All right, if you see his face, if you see his face, you go, "Oh yeah, that's the guy." He's pretty memorable. But yeah, it's basically that. I'll spoil a little bit. About 3/4 of the way film, our hero Train, played by Nicholas Gonzalez, he gets his eyes poked out, and he spends the rest of the film blind. And he's still, running rings around these guys. It's just a really well made film. It's directed by two brothers, Jeff and Josh Crook. They did a couple of films and then they seem to have just sort of disappeared, unfortunately. The last one was in 2010. It's a shame because, you know, on the basis of this, they're very competent, very well written kind of thing. I'd love to sort of see them do some more stuff. These guys, you know, very impressed with what they did with this. I'd certainly like to see more of it. Yeah, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. This is on Tubi. It's the only place I've been able to find it. It's not available in the UK, unfortunately. But if you're able to sort of switch your VPN that way, then it's definitely worth checking out. And that is the end of this week's show. So cheers, Steve, for joining me with these films this week. Not a bad bunch overall, although HEIR of the Witch was a bit lacking. But the other two are reasonably solid films. Rich will be back with us next week, and we'll start thinking about our end of the year review. It's getting to that time.
Yeah.
Indeed. I know. So don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at the DTV Digest. Also check out the DTV Short Shots, where we got links to loads and loads of excellent short films that Rich has curated over the years. I think it's something like 800, something ridiculous like that. Something for everyone in there for sure. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.